Hi, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tech Exec Podcast, where I'll help you create teams with leading, because life's too short to lead mediocre teams. Our subject today is lessons learned or not. And as always, I'm your host, Aviv Ben-Yosef, Tech Executive Coach and Consultant. Now, lessons learned or not, this comes because I just happened to, over the last month or two, have conversations with 3 co-founders of startups that succeeded or not. And what I always do when I talk to people, not just with co-founders, but when I talk to people who just had a promotion, just left their company, just got acquired, made a big decision, whatever, I always ask, what are you learning? What have you learned? What are you taking with you to your next adventure? Because 2 reasons. 1, I like learning from other people's experience. This is a nice hack. 2, because I find that too often people don't take a second to even think about that, and then they just move forward. Now, with these 3 people, I had such a bad experience asking. Why? 1, the first co-founder gave me a bunch of lessons. He was prepared with his lessons from what happened and what he's going to be doing differently, but essentially none of them were related to the actual startup. They were about all sorts of different decisions that probably would not have mattered about the success of the company. He would have done things differently a bit about his time, etc. But when it came to the actual company, why did the company fail? He had nothing to say. Another co-founder of another failed startup, starting already a new one, asked, okay, what are you going to be doing differently? And he said, this time I'm going to be way more connected to the technology. Last time as a CTO, I was not connected enough. I'm like, okay, I'm guessing that's fine. But if memory serves, that previous startup did not fail due to technology reasons, but because you and the rest of the co-founders were not connected enough to the market. Given that, maybe that's the wrong lesson, right? Maybe what you ought to be doing is correcting that mistake before focusing on maybe a mistake that wasn't material to the success of the startup. And number 3 was with a co-founder who actually had success, had sold a company, had already started a new company, and I was asking, okay, what are you taking with you from the previous company? Have you got any lessons, any things you want to do again, or things you don't want to repeat? And you know what I got from him? The blank stare, the infamous blank stare, because he had never taken a second to even think about that. He wasn't clear about, why did things succeed? What actually worked for me? What actually would I like to be doing differently? Because even though we were successful, maybe we can be even more successful or get there faster or whatever. And these are all very, very typical. The lessons learned or not is exactly about the fact that so many of us are so focused on plowing forward that as we walk through this path of our careers, along the edge of the road, we start coming across all of these insights that get accumulated as we make more progress and we reach another milestone in our career. However, if we're always just, like horses with those blinds, we always look forward and continue and never take a second to take a breather, look to the sides, realize, oh, what's this nice insight that they got here? Maybe I can pick that up and add it to my basket. Maybe that will help me down the path to notice that, oh, this looks like a pitfall I already had, or that just might be an interesting shortcut that we can take. If we never allow ourselves to take a second and pick up these insights, actually learn, we just let it go to waste. We avoid having everything that we can or could get from these learning opportunities. And you, dear listener or dear watcher, you do not have to wait for an epic moment to come when you eventually finally get an exit or you get fired or whatever to only then learn. My lesson learned is that I learn so much faster when I actually learn regularly. I don't wait, because I don't know about you. If I were to have some milestone achieved 2 years from now, I would not remember all the decisions. And the way our human brain works is that we usually only remember the past couple of months or the hardest part or whatever. We don't remember all of the different things we went through. So what I do and what I recommend to people is to regularly ask ourselves, what are our lessons learned? I know I've been pulling out these notebooks way too often recently on my videos, but here, this is my current go-to. This is a notebook of about 500 pages. I've been starting to fill it out. Let's see, 3 months ago, I'm almost at its end already. Okay, I'm at page 420 something. It has 450 or 500, and this is 3 months old. Why? Because I sit down and I write a bunch every day. You don't have to do the same. Of course, you don't have to be as insane as I am about this. But I find that when I take a second and I think, what am I learning? What am I doing? I always have this in front of me in my meetings as I'm working on something. Even when I'm working on a video, I have notebooks open in front of me. So if I have an idea that's unrelated to what we're currently doing, if I don't have to say it to the camera, I'm going to take a second and write down this idea. When I have conversations with my clients, if they say me something that I think, oh, that's an interesting insight, or if I say something like, okay, that's not just relevant to this client, this can actually be applicable to other people. Let's write that down. I have a question to myself as I'm talking, I wonder, is that always the case or not? Take that. I'm always taking those. I sit down weekly. This is the start of the week before starting to record. I sat down and I did a weekly review. I went over my notes. I thought, what have I learned? What have I shared of interest? Is there anything special here that I want to double down on? Anything that I see and I'm like, no, I want to stop doing those. That's not working. I do these assessments regularly, and that means that I think, of course, I might be mistaken, but my opinion and my impression is that I'm learning much faster than anyone. And if you, dear listener, decide to right now use the fact that I'm recording this at the start of December, which is always a time for some navel gazing, self-reflection, assessment, resolutions, etc. Use that and ask yourself, take 5 minutes and ask yourself, dear myself, what have I learned in 2025? Why was it a good year or a bad year or whatever? What do I want to be doing more of? What do I want to repeat? What do I want to stop doing? What surprised me, etc. 5 minutes, write down a few sentences, file those away somewhere. It doesn't have to be on paper. It can be just in your notes app. I don't care. But do that, and just by doing that, you're going to be better than 95% of the leaders out there, because frankly, most people do not take enough time to invest in themselves and actually learn from what we're doing. That's the harsh truth. And I know that I'm biased because I tend to talk to people who already are interested in investing in themselves. I talk to people who already are taking the time to listen to a podcast about being a better tech executive, as opposed to, the true crime podcast du jour. And if that's what you prefer, you're already doing better than many people. But if you really want to do something unique, I recommend taking the time, taking those 5 minutes and writing down your lessons from this year. Ultimately, you should be doing this every couple of weeks or every week, like we do with retros with our organizations. You do have regular retros, I'm assuming. And once you do that, things will get much better. You're going to start picking up on those notes. You're going to start noticing much quicker those insights along the line. There's once you start, going foraging for a specific plant or something, you're going to be noticing those more easily because you get experience. That's the same with these lessons and insights you can start gathering. All right, so start doing that. Invest in yourself those 5 minutes, I beg of you. I think that you're worth those. I actually think you're worth more than that. If you want to invest in yourself more than 5 minutes, you can get a bunch of details in the show notes about how to do that in working with me. But even without that, 5 minutes, just so this is not yet another podcast on your playlist, and invest in yourself, take some minutes, write down something, boom, just like that, you're a bit better. That's it for this week. I'm going to let you continue. I'm going to save you a few minutes so you can take 5 minutes and write your lessons learned. One last note, if you're listening during December, I'm reminding you that during December, there's a special offer for Unplug with Aviv, my offering where you get every month a session live with me where I do an in-depth session about something like yearly reviews, about how we coach people, etc., you can ask questions live. You can submit them before you get the recordings, not just for this session. If you join now, you're going to get the recordings of all the sessions we had in the past. And right now, if you join in December, you're going to lock in a very good yearly price, and it's just going to be locked in as long as you keep renewing. So why not check it out? Gift yourself something nice for the end of the year, and I'll see you here next week. Ciao.